Okay, we are on a new parts bag D. Put that into my nice yogurt pots that I use for my bits. And we are now on step 33. And you can see here I've got a plethora of parts for step 33. We are starting dampers. This is, we're going to make 4 of these, 4 dampers, one for each corner of the model. Tamiya in this kit do give you the red damper oil, soft. Mercedes G-Wagon, let's face it, in its real state is really quite a luxury cruiser, so I think they try to replicate that. So here are the components. So we needed MD11s, we needed 8 of the red O-rings, so here we are, got the 8 of those. We needed 4 of the piston rods, that's going to go inside the housing of the dampers. We also needed 4 of Y1 and Y3, and we also needed some X1s and some X11s. And it's a case of repeating this 4 times, making 4 dampers, a little bit of silicone oil on the O-rings and the piston so that it goes through, and putting the X1 on the end and the stop in there as well. So I'll get those all in there and we can get those 4 put together. Okay, so we have done step 33 and the piston is in the cylinder with the X1 on the end. It just happens that Tamiya this time around, the X1 is already pre-threaded, so you don't need to use the pliers to turn these on because they've already got threads already in, so they screwed in really easy. So that's a really good build step there. And the little O-rings, 2 in each one, are in the end of the piston. So that's step 33 complete. We'll now go on to step 34. And step 34 is filling the damper oils with oils, making sure that there's no air bubbles in them, and popping the little red diaphragms in the top, and then screwing the caps on, which we have here. We've got 4 caps. So it's a case of doing that and just methodically going through all 4 of those. So that's an easy step again. I should get that bit sorted and come back to you. Okay, we have now completed step 34 as well. We have a piston with a little touch of rebound there, just a little bit, but relatively all nice and smooth, and with the soft oil in there, I'm sure it's going to feel like a real limousine. Right, so we can now move on to step 35. So we're gonna do steps 35 and 36 together. They are essentially the same steps, but for front and back. Have to please excuse the lighting and a little bit of shadowing here. Today it's decided to do a thunderstorm today, and it's come over really dark and cloudy, so excuse the shadowing. But anyway, it's a fairly simple step. We've got our 4 dampers that we made in the previous steps, and we've got now 4 of the MD19 springs. We've also got 4 of the MD1, so there's 2 on each step basically, so it's 4 of the MD1s, which are the 3x20mm panhead machine screws. Excuse me. You've also got MD10, which is the flanged nut. We've got 4 of those, so I've laid them out. 4 of the spacers, which is MD12, which are the 3x6mm spacers. I've laid those out. And we also need X5, which is the holder that goes at the bottom of the suspension stamper that holds the spring in, and also an X7, which is a starting point to tune the suspension and tune the damper settings. And just to let you know that you get in the set of X parts, you get literally 4 of the trees and you're able to tune the suspension a little bit with these extra spacers that go on the suspension on the damper cylinder. You can also, if you need to, make it a bit longer. Not quite sure how these would work, these pistons ends. I think this is for another kit as well, because the piston in these are solid pistons. You could, if you're a die-hard fan, change the dampers out to slightly different dampers, but I'm going to leave mine stock. But there's a little bit of tuning availability. Anyway, so let's put these together. So to put these together, it's a relatively straightforward job. You pop the spring through, you take your X5, and this section here holds the spring, so you literally pop that in and you move the spring around, and then we take our X7 piece and we slide that in. So now you've got a damper, and we do that 4 times. So it's a little bit of a production line, if you like, just getting these put in the right place so that the damper spring and the dampers are all on there. So that's a relatively easy step. Anyone can do that in a matter of seconds, as you can see. There we are. And now we need to screw these onto the car. So these are effectively going onto the front of the car. We're going to collect the ball joint connector that we popped onto the axle down here. We're going to pop that on, and we're going to collect the first of the connection on the post on the suspension upright turret. We're going to collect it onto here. So again, you've got a little bit of tuning positions. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And again, very similar to the rear, we're going to be doing the same on the rear, collecting the rear of the ball joint ends, and again collecting the rear first one. So yeah, I'll get that onto the car and get the suspension onto the car. So just to show you how that pops on, I'm just gonna done the other the three, sorry. I'm just gonna do the last one. So it's a case of popping on the onto the ball joint. I'm try and do this on camera. Popping onto the ball joint, the actual bottom of the suspension. There we are. And once you pop that on, you then collect one of the spacers that goes through the suspension top, through the mount. You take the flange nut and we collect the other side of that 3mm by 20mm screw, and we literally collect that like so. Tip that up the other way so you can see it on the camera, and a case of just nipping that up tight. Again, don't have to go too mad, it's not going to do a lot, just finger tight. There we are. So that's 35 and 36 complete, and we now have a chassis that's together. Nice. This step, we need to make sure we've got the right parts. So we're going to need MD7, we need one of these, a 3mm flange nut, MD10, we need one of those. We need the servo saver spring small, we need 2 of those. We need a large servo saver spring, which is one of those, so that's MD17 and MD18. We also need the relevant Q1 or Q3 part, whichever fits your servo. The Q1 fits by servo. Mine's the Futaba style servo, so it's the Futaba Tamiya style one. You need also Q5, this piece here, which we're going to attach the ball end to. We're going to need Q4, and they're going to need the relevant screw that fits into your servo. So as mine's a metal geared servo, I need an LM3 screw to fit into mine. So there we are, that's those. And we need to pop the Q1, the spring system, into there into the servo horn, and then attach Q5 and Q4, and then pop it into the center of the servo. Get the orientation of the servo correct. So we need to make it this way round, just looking at the drawing. So you've got the splines onto the left here, and then pop them together and move this and put this into the car. So literally the whole of this page is literally down to the right servo, the right screw, and the right horn. It looks more than it really is, but yeah, that's where we are. Right, we'll get that sorted. And there we have the finished servo horn and spring system, and I can feel that there's some springing on there. Oh yeah, so you never get this exactly center like they do. The way the splines work here, you're either slightly to the left or slightly to the right by one spline, but we'll be able to dial that out with our dual rate adjustment and our endpoint adjustments on our radio gear, so I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, that's it. Step 37 is now completed. So for step 38, we need some more parts from the parts bag. We need we need 4 of the MD3s, which are the 3mm by 18mm self-tapping screws. We need 2 of the MD6, which are the 3mm by 10mm flanged screws. We need a couple of parts from the C2s. They're going to go either side of the chassis. We also need our servo that we've pre-built as well. So we're now mounting these components onto the car and putting the servo into the front and attaching the linkage that we had made to the front of the servo. So it's a case of we'll get those onto the car now. Okay, so we've done step 38 now. So we've got our servo in the front here, a servo steering arm attached, and we've got our outriggers on the left and right hand sides attached. Again, very easy step. So we're on to step 39, which is installing the switch and the electronic speed controller of the model. Okay, for step 39, we need some more parts from the bag D. We need a couple of the MC4s, which are the 2x8mm screws. We need a couple of the MA4s, which are the 3x8mm self-tapping screws. We need a couple of MA10s, which are 2mm washers. We're going to need our electronic speed controller. This is the updated version. This is the TBLE 404S, which comes with a kit. We're going to need our receiver. It just happens I've got a 3-channel FlySky, which I have. And we're going to need a couple of parts as well from tree F. We're going to need F1 and F2. So we've got the F1, which has the Tamiya logo. It's the box for the receiver, and we're going to need to pop those as well. So we need to pop those onto the chassis, and we attach these components to the chassis using the supplied black double-sided tape. It's like a little bit of foam tape, so it helps cushion that. So we need to cut this to the relevant sizes for our components. Okay, so I've completed now step 39, and 39 we've installed the electronic speed controller, we've installed the receiver and the receiver box, we've installed the switch, and all I need to do now is sort out my cabling. I'm not one for having cables all over the place, so I will sort that out at a later stage, but essentially that's step 39 complete. Step 40 is about tidying up the cables, and it gives you a suggested routing for the cables so that they're neat and tidy. So yeah, that's the next step, and it talks about popping the antennae out through this section here, which is the section of the chassis. But as we're running a digital system, unfortunately, as Pete Wiley would say, wibbly wobbly, I'm going to need a stubby wobby. Sorry about that. Yeah, so there's a little antennae holder on the receiver box, which I will probably use, and I will cut a little stubby, even more stubby than this stubby wubby wibbly wobbly. Right, I shall get on with that bit, and then we'll also move on to the next stage, which is fastening a little grub screw in there to hold the aerial in place so it doesn't move around. Okay, we are on step 41, so I'm just finishing off putting the front bumper onto the car. So on this step you had to, on the front bumper, on the E1, F4 and the E3, screw the 3x8mm screws into the base of those, so that holds that piece in, and then you slot in the MA nuts into the cavity area of E3, and with the actual MB4s, the 3x8mm screws and the spring washer, you tighten those into the chassis, and the chassis, that sort of caps the chassis off and makes the chassis look nice and neat at the front. And that's just a case of popping those in and nipping those up. You don't have to go too mad. Again, we're just looking for everything to be tight. And the rear bumper is a nifty idea. I really like this idea to allow the battery to be taken in and out from the rear of the car. It's like a lever system that you literally put a couple of ball ends. So with the back end of the car, the rear bumper fastens in this way, so you put the little nuts on, and it's a nifty idea where you push against and that clicks into place, and you literally push that lever down and pull that out and put your battery into the back of the car. That's a really clever idea. I like that very much indeed. So that's step 41 complete. Okay, we are now on step 42, and step 42 is wheels and tyres. Here we have them. Talks about here, we do not cement the wheels and tyres. Okay, not seen that before. I normally have to cement them on, and also this is the first time that I've had wheels that I don't have to paint, because these are, wow, these are lovely. They look beautiful. So yes, that's the first. Excuse me. That's the first. Wheels and tyres. Wow. And of course, in the proper style, the obligatory sniff test of the tyres. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Pete, that one's for you. Yeah, have a sniff of that one, Pete. Yeah, go on. There you go. Look. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Nice. Yes, that's the tyres that we've got to fit onto the rim. So that's yeah, they look lovely. Perhaps a touch hard. But yeah, we'll see how we get on with those. And well, we're going to fit those to the wheels, and then we're going to fit them on step 43 to the car. So just really to show for step 42 how you put the tyre and wheel in. They're saying no cementing is necessary. So you squeeze the wheel through into the tyre, and the idea is we need to get the tyre beaded correctly in the wheels. There's a space in the wheel itself, so we need to just maneuver that over. And once we've moved that over like so, we then go around to the front side and we literally tug and lift into the groove area. There we are, and it should be flush all the way around, and that's how you put the tyre on. And to me, it doesn't look like it's going to spin, so we'll see. So there's the wheels and tyres all done. So to put the wheel onto the car for the front axle, I've placed in the 1260 bearing into the wheel carrier instead of those nasty plastic ones. You pop the 2x10mm pin through the axle. You then take C10, which we got off the parts tree, and there's spaces like a cross section there, so these are the 12mm hex. Pop that so it engages over the pin, and then you take your wheel and you engage the 12mm hex into the wheel, and we'll do that now. There we go. And then we take our flanged nut and we tighten that onto the wheel axle, and that should make it look nice. I mean, you can use the Tamiya supplied wheel wrench, but as I've got the Tamiya screwdriver set and nut wrench sets and etc., I'm using one of those. And that's it. That's the wheel on. And I'll do the same for the others. And to screw on the rear wheels to the car, we just need to not put the bearing in because the bearings are already in the axles in the rear. We need to take one of our pins, pop that through the axle. So we've got that through, which we're going to do now. There we are, that 10mm by 2mm pins, and then again take our 12mm hex and engage the pin. Take our wheel, engage the wheel into the hex like so. Take our wheel nut and our spanner, and you can use, like I say, the Tamiya wheel wrench, or I'm using the Tamiya set of screwdrivers and nut wrenches and hex drives. There we are, that's now done. So now we have a chassis on its wheels. So that's steps 43 done. Step 44, it talks about putting some foam pieces in the battery compartment, and the idea is that you can either put your battery in from the top like this, and then the foam pieces keep the battery from moving around. So that's really quite nice. That's quite a nice touch. And yeah, so you can see there's a standard 7.2 nickel metal hydroxide pack goes in quite happily, no issues at all. I've got to change the connector here to a Dean's connector, which I shall do later. But the foam helps keep the battery from moving around, which is really nice. And that's that. That's step 44, and now we want to step 45. Okay, for step 45, we're going to need to put on our body posts. I've cut our body posts to the right dimensions according to the drawing it's on the step there. So you've got 4 holes on the smaller of the J4s and 22 holes on the larger of the J1s. And got myself my 3x20mm screws, my MD1s. I've got 4 of those. My MD10s, my 3mm flange nut. My body pins, MD15. I've got 4 of those, and again another 4, so that makes 8 in total. So we need to just pop these details and pop the body brace onto the car. Okay, so that's step 45 completed. We've got the rear body posts in place and the front body posts in place. And with step 45 completed, we now need to move on to the bodywork, and that's the next step.